Quality. I love it. Welcome, guys. Welcome to another Heartbeat tutorial. Thanks to everyone tuning in the studio audience, folks who are watching us live on YouTube, live on LinkedIn. Appreciate everyone. We got 22 people in the audience already, with more joining. Thank you all for being here. Please introduce yourselves in the chat. Drop where you're from. Where in the world are you tuning in from? I am from upstate New York near Syracuse. Misty, you got Arizona represented in the house? And Lisa, where are you coming in from today?
Just outside Vancouver, BC.
Wonderful. All right, folks, where are you guys from? Looks like we got Wisconsin, Morgan Hill, California, Bath, UK, Atlanta, Georgia, Toronto, UK outside of London, San Diego, Georgia, and the Netherlands. We have an international audience here. I love it. Many states, many nations, many nation states, and all of that. Wonderful. Awesome. New Hampshire, Phoenix, and another Toronto. Wonderful. Super great to have everybody here. Welcome, guys, to this very special tutorial session. It is your winning membership blueprint from structure to sold out, featuring Lisa Prinsek. Super excited to have Lisa back. Lisa is a repeat offender here at Heartbeat, constantly bringing awesome wisdom on how to grow community businesses. And if I can give her a little bit of a hype track, I'm going to do that right now. So over the last 16 years, Lisa has helped thousands of impact-driven business owners deep dive into their unique value and business models to build compelling offers and profitable brands. She helps coaches and niche experts become thought leaders and increase their impact and wealth with membership programs. Staunch believer in the simplicity and sustainability, she helps her clients accomplish their goals by focusing on what to do and what to ignore. Lisa can be found skiing, biking, or mucking about in her garden in the coast mountains of BC. Super excited to have you here, Lisa. Thank you for being back yet again.
It's so fun to be here. And
Wonderful.
should I just get the screen share going and get started?
What I would do is let's let everybody know, as a reminder for those who are tuning in, if you have questions, we have a live chat that brings everyone, no matter where they're tuning in from, together to chat together live. We'll be popping some questions in there for you guys as well. If you are in our studio audience, which means if you join through the Hearth and you're in the Riverside link, you can put your voice and presence to your question. You can come up on stage if you wanted to. We're going to keep track of questions. Lisa's got some things to share with us. We'll definitely have some recap space at the end for some Q&A catch-up. Lisa, I have the general purpose of this is to help people learn how to keep their members happy and sell your membership on repeat with clear system that turns guesswork into steady growth. Who do you think is going to be most excited about this? Who's this for? And then kick us off.
Well, so this presentation will be interesting because I'm kind of putting together two things which are very different. One is how to have a simple structure so that you can attract the right members and keep them happy. So if you have a small membership or you just really want to get it right and not just completely wing it, this is great. And then I am going to also talk about sales, because these are the two things I help all my clients with. It's like, how do you create the right thing that isn't going to be overwhelming and that it's also attractive? And then how do you sell it? Because those are the two foundations of success for membership. So I'm going to put those both in today.
Love it. I love it. I can't wait. Those are absolutely critical pillars. Love that we're covering that topic. All right. So please kick us off, Lisa. Let's get right into the topics today.
Alrighty. Okay. So yeah, I love always hearing from people in the chat, and whether you're totally new to memberships or you're in the planning phase, or if you've had a membership maybe in the past or have one now, love to know who's here. It just helps me understand kind of the level that I should be speaking to. Because of course, if you've had a membership, you'll know, you'll have had some experience and you'll know what, you've been through some things, right? Basically today, as I mentioned, you're going to know how to keep your members happy and how to sell it on repeats with clear systems that instead of really just focusing on guesswork, you can start to use systems for growth. Memberships are scalable models, and they are being sold in a way that has to be scalable. You can't have a call with every single person you sign up for your membership. And if it's a lower ticket one. So we just need to make sure that we're building it with that in mind. And that's why the structure is so important to helping inform the sales system. So again, just this is probably something I mean, this really is the dream, is to have a group of people who pay you every month because they love what you offer, they trust you, they want to keep learning and growing with you without having to constantly chase new sales or do exhausting launches or trade every hour for dollars. So, whether or not you are just starting to hatch a plan on this recurring revenue, or you have a membership and need to finally grow it, you're here because you have this dream business idea of making things a little bit more predictable and really having a brand that gets known. But you might be wondering, will you end up creating endless hours of content? Are you going to gain any traction, and is that going to happen? And are you going to get stuck with something you hate? Because that's always the thing that people worry about. And sometimes people think either very have very big visions, like, oh, this is going to be so successful, and others, and that may not happen instantly, and other people sometimes think that, will anyone buy this? And so I'd be curious to know if you have any other doubts that you've been circling in your head, and if you want to put that in the chat, I'd be curious to know what those are.
Yeah,
But
guys, float those in the chat if you
yeah.
guys have any doubts. I did also want to let you know, Lisa, as far as like the general audience split here, looks like we've got a pretty good balance. I've got one, two, three, four, six voices that have said they are new to community. We got several that are in the planning, and then some that have literally just started
Okay.
the journey. So that
Okay.
looks like a slight bias to new-ish folks.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, ones and
That's good.
twos,
Well,
it
I'll
looks
spend
like.
more
Yeah.
time on the structure than the sales. So that's good to know. All right. So, the really down at the end of the day, the truth of it is that the program that you love is the one that will succeed, because a lot of business success is boring and it comes down to optimizing, and it comes down to tweaking, and it comes down to never throwing everything out and thinking it's a disaster, and then also never resting on your laurels and being like, it's going so great, because you'll have a great month and then it'll feel slower the next. So the idea is that if you're really passionate about what you do, and you're passionate about learning to run it like a business person, you will be great down the road. It's just about that long-term kind of passion and commitment to it, regardless of whether it's going really well or if it's struggling. So I think that's really the truth of the matter. You're just going to be, completely committed to this, and throwing one program out to start another does not mean the next one's going to be any different. I mean, I didn't find scaling easy. I just didn't get that right away. I thought things were supposed to take off quickly. I would look at, all the super successful people out there talk about how great everything is without knowing any of the background of how long they took to get there. And of course, there are going to be some people who do happen to hit a niche at the right time and have the right business mindset. But for most other people, you've got to just take the leap at some point and get into a scaling type of program that's going to grow your brand. And it's also going to force you to have a really stronger business, because you're going to learn the things that's critical to having something that can scale, which is, your unique positioning and what makes you stand out and things like that. So I just want to say, I stalled on opportunities for years. I didn't do anything one-to-many for, like, I think 8 years. Eventually I launched a membership, and I did do it before I knew what I was doing, and I'm still running it years later, and it's still chugging along. So, if I can do it, you can do it, because I wasn't the bravest person. But the really important thing, well, actually, I'll just go over the ROI of memberships, which you probably know, but I'm going to point out a few that, some of you might not know. There is that predictable recurring revenue, and especially when it gets to a certain point, you've got freedom and flexibility, and people don't realize how big that is. You will have so much flexibility and time off running your membership. You will be like, I think I need to add stuff because I'm not that busy, but you actually don't need to add stuff. You don't need to stuff it full of content. I'm a big believer in, nobody really actually needs to be as busy in it as you think they need to be. They need to take what they're there to get, and then also go on and do other things and implement, right? So you will have so much flexibility and freedom with this type of program. The community impact is huge, of people sharing and connecting. The scalable delivery is, again, why you have that freedom and flexibility. And you'll have steady brand authority when you have a signature program and get known for something, and people can communicate via like through you to each other, right? It's through your programs that they're talking and learning. And then you've also got leverage for upsells, right? So a community or membership does not even have to be as profitable and sometimes as it can be a conduit to other things that you're not paying for, like paying money into for other people to buy different things. So there's a huge reasons for it. Anyone can do that with commitment and support. I'll just share a couple examples. Nick and Lisa had a huge live off the land and became self-reliant, and they had were giving so much away on their podcast, on their blogs. They also had an audience that did not have a huge amount of money, and they wanted to share everything they had learned, and they were also giving a lot of advice away for free, like on the street when they'd run into somebody. So they monetized with the membership, and that was a really great way for them to do it. They did it slightly lower ticket. I think it's about $49 now. And they ended up doing a really professional launch with a webinar and sold like a little bit more clearly than they had before. And they ended up getting 67 founding members from a really old list, a stale list that they'd gotten through trade shows. That's how old it was. And 94% bought the annual, which gave them the security to keep doing what they're doing in their daily life. That's one example of a lower ticket membership. And then there's Sarah, who is an executive functioning coach who was getting full with one-on-one clients and also wanted a different way to serve her clients who maybe couldn't afford it or just didn't have room. And she ended up getting 18 members from her very small list. And that was also able to help her increase her rates across the board for her coaching because she had an alternative program that offered something similar. And she was really excited about the engagement in her group and was working on sales funnels and did work on some sales funnels to bring people in. So these are two totally different kinds of businesses that are able to do memberships because it works as a great way to offer value long-term for their clients and free up their time. So that is totally possible. Now we're going to get into the structure. How do you set this up so it truly is sustainable so that you have the time to work on the sales and marketing? Because that's a huge part of having a scalable program where you need to enroll more people all the time. And you want to make sure that it's still providing amazing value that isn't draining you and it is not just overwhelming for your members. So the first thing we want to look at is how are you going to keep your members happy? And I know when you haven't launched your membership yet, you're thinking, oh, I'll worry about retention later. I'll worry about keeping them happy later. But I really encourage you to think about that now because the same thing that's going to keep them happy is going to be the thing that will sell them into it or get them to join in the first place, right? It has to be sustaining for you and sustaining for them. So I'm going to show you how to bake this in. First, by telling you why they don't join. So people don't join because they want endless content, unless the entire purpose of your membership is to literally give people templates or things that they can repurpose. But in most cases, people don't need a lot of stuff. They're not going to look probably into the archives and go back into the database and look at old stuff. I know people think that people are buying a volume of things, but honestly, this was even more like when I first said this a couple years ago, this is even more important now with AI. People are finding stuff really easily. So we want to make sure that your purpose is to organize it for them. All right. They're not there to be impressed by your knowledge. So they don't want to just have you talk about things that you care about, but that isn't relevant to them. You can't just talk about things because you want to sort of share like, oh, I know my stuff. I want them to know I know my stuff. That's not what they're there for. And they're not buying because they want more things to do. Everyone's too busy, right? So these are important points to make because we need to understand what is it that they do want. Any questions at this point? I'm sure this is really...
No, so far, no, great. Honestly, appreciate that. We just have people seem to like being really relating to and resonating with the context you're approaching. So like Catherine shares that one of the stumbling blocks for Catherine is how much time does Catherine need to, as the owner moderator, need to devote to the group? There's just some questions around like that one example you shared about was 49. You said that was per month, we presumed, but we just wanted
Yeah.
to confirm. Yep.
Yeah.
So that gives you guys a sense of anchoring point in there.
But they started
Um,
out low, like they did a really low founding members because they just wanted a baseline and they were
to
really
get it.
committed.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I think there's a lot of questions right now around this topic that you have up on screen right here, which is like this like, so if they don't want all of those things, what do we do? How much time does it take? And so I think we're kind of
Yeah.
caught
Okay.
right up on that.
Okay. So this is what they want. They want results. They want a transformation. So your membership, unless it's a community interest only and people are there to hang out and knit or do something that is very non-linear in terms of growth, right? It's just more of a community hangout. But most memberships are a little bit more than a community hangout, right? Most of them deliver a transformation to some extent. Like you are a slightly different person when you joined than you are when you're been in it for several years, right? You've developed sophistication on the topic. Maybe you're more of a teacher or mentor at that point. You've gone through a lot of things. You've learned things. You've added things to your repertoire. Like you're not the same person. So that is actually a transformation. And that's what every business does. Like it gives a transformation to people. It helps them start at one point and further their abilities, knowledge, beliefs, you name it by the end. I mean, there's a whole value ladder that I should do a presentation on pricing because it's a really interesting. Oh, I did that last time, actually. There is one on pricing
Yes, you did.
that talks about the value transformation. But so there's something that's being delivered, and that is part of the reason. That's what you need to be able to promise them in order for them to even want to join, because most people aren't just going to join because it's something else to do. Some will join because they're curious, but most will join because, and those ones actually will leave if they don't like, if they're not that curious anymore, and if it just quelled their curiosity within the first
Right.
month or week. It's the people who actually want the growth. So you really need to focus on that. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. And then others want validation and reassurance. So that could be the whole purpose of your community. If it's a community only, it could be that's all you have, but it could also just be an aside to the transformation. A lot of growth could come through the community. And basically, all of this helps them save time. So you're curating a path for them that they would have to watch YouTube videos and piecemeal stuff without consistency, right? Without that consistent type of teaching. It's like, when people jump from, and you may have done this, and we've all done this, someone's thought a process around do it this way to this person's, to that person's, when you don't stick with a guide or leader for a while, you end up like creating a hodgepodge of a business. That's exactly what people will do unless they are following somebody and practicing whatever that thing you're teaching is for a while. So this is going to save them time. Instead of hopping around, they're going to start to add to their whatever it is they're learning. So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to dive into just a bit more detail in a minute. And then the why people stay. Well, they got the results. They started seeing progress, and now they're like, there must be more to come. They enjoy following your lead because they trust you now. And yes, there is some trust level before they join, but they also will now have more trust. And then there is just the plain connection and belonging. And like, these are my people, and I know I can get my questions answered. Even if I'm already learned most of the things, I will stay even longer just because of being around people who I can relate to some extent. So those are different reasons. It's complex, right? So you want to make sure that your membership is kind of encompassing all of that, but it doesn't have to have all of them. Some of them, it's all connection and belonging, and that's mainly it. And others, it's all kind of mentorship. And I actually will share that in a minute. And some of it is really just education, more education focused. So I'm going to teach you this in terms of your ideal members, like trying to understand who they are and what do they have in common so that you can start to think about what is the transformation. Because if you have had a bunch of different clients or worked with a bunch of different people, they might all be kind of different, right? And it might be difficult to be thinking, well, who am I creating this for? Well, I want you to create it for the people who have had the best results. Like, I want you to create it for the ones who are actually there to show up and do the thing and appreciate where they've got to, the ones that you can help the most. So there's probably a commonality on those with those people. And so this is where I like to think of your 3 to 5 best clients. Think about them. This is not about avatars. This is about like detailed, like, oh, so and so came to me and she was really struggling with this, and this. And then think of a couple more people and start to get to know, like, what is that? And of course, you might come up with some generalizations, like, what are their biggest problems? Like, what are they always saying? What is their problem awareness level? Like, do they already know they need a solution? Like in my case, people now know they want a membership. That's because that's what my brand is. They're not like, oh, my business is broken, help me. A lot of them are like, they've determined that they already have a solution in mind. So I do have a very solution oriented crowd in my world because I've niched down to that. Um, are they beginners or intermediates? So, I mean, like, so for in my example, I can say that I help a lot of people who have been in business for a while because I'm not teaching things like how to start building a list, or, I mean, I will help people grow it 100% with my clients and help them get focused on how they're going to grow their list. But I'm not doing the basics of business. So I could say they're more intermediate business owners, right? And then also understanding some of the common values, because that's the personal side of why people decide who they're going to trust. So this is a really good thing to get to know, and it's better than an avatar, because I tell you what, I don't have a real avatar when it comes down to people and gender or age. It's just kind of not really that worthwhile, other than the fact that I know I don't help 18 to 20, probably 18 to 25 as much. Like, don't buy from me, that, or you know what I mean? So basically, I wouldn't say that. I mean, that helps for, say, trying to target ads or something, but you don't really need to know your avatar. You need to know the journey of your ideal member or client. So does that make sense to everyone? Just curious to know.
Yeah, if you
Check
guys
in.
can drop in if that clicked for you, just let us know if that's good. You can give us a thumbs up. You can give us a yes in the chat.
Yeah.
But no, at least I resonate with this too because from the last slide to this slide, it is about the familiarity is where like you can't really make someone trust you like on command, but once
Yeah.
they're familiar with you and they have that experience that's recurring, they do stick around, and they're more likely to engage in the transformation and then create this feedback loop of like referrals or other positive vibe in your community if they are the ideal type of member versus
Yeah.
somebody
And
who's
they'll
there to
stay.
just be loyal but not necessarily the ideal person, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just because you're going to write to these people with, that's what your copy needs to be. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about, the most important asset in your sales cycle in a minute. So you've got to be able to speak to people.
We
And
do have
people,
we do have some feedback. Just let's see. Naomi, Ali, Rich are all saying it makes sense.
I love
Rich,
what
love
Rich
your comment.
said.
Yeah, yeah, Rich. If we'll get that comment up on screen if we can. He's like, yeah, we don't exactly grab a beer or coffee with an avatar, right? And I said, yeah,
right.
well
Yeah.
said, well said.
Yeah. I mean, it's like they're just, it's kind of, I just think it's kind of like, it's a very popular exercise, but I always like glaze over when my clients start talking about avatars, and I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, what's their problem, and how do you solve, and what do they really
Yeah.
want, and how do you
What's
do
what's their
that?
starting state? What's their desired end state? And how do you get them from A to B?
Oh, here we
Right? It's
go.
yeah.
Let's
Ooh,
talk about that.
almost. Ooh, I almost predicted that one. Okay, awesome. And Dwight, I see your question, but we're gonna float that after Lisa gets a little bit more traction on this topic. I got you. I'll get that question
Okay,
surfaced up.
so basically, the number one thing you need to know about your ideal members are, in order to keep the deliverables sustainable and also the positioning in the market, like the conversation focused enough so that they know that you're the person that can solve their problems and keep attracting the people, is to know what it takes to get the results. So, if you look at this and we break this down, where is it? It's not moving here. Yeah, the A point. So what do they struggle with? Like, what are their problems? And we're mostly, I was saying I do have a slight solution aware people, but they aren't like, they know they want a membership, but they still don't know why they like how to go about it. So they're a bit problem as well. Like, I want one, but I don't know how to do it, or I don't know how to make these decisions, or if this will work. So what are your members experiencing when you start working with them? Like the ideal ones, what are their common mindsets or beliefs when they're ready to grow? What are they saying, thinking, feeling? This is a very standard startup practice is like that customer empathy map where it's like, what are they thinking, feeling, saying, and doing? And like, you've got to get to know that to be a an online marketer, an online person who sells anything. And most people are problem aware. They're like, oh, I want this, but I don't know what I'm doing. I'm nervous, da 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 da. I feel anxious about this. I'm overwhelmed. Most people are in some level of state of problem. They're not like, oh, I just want this thing. Like you still have to relate with them with where they're at, right? So this is the really important thing to know. So I would take some time to figure this out about your person and I pick those several clients, not the ones that aren't the right ones. And then the point B, like, where do they want to go? You have to hold some kind of aspirational journey for them, even though it's a membership and they might take 5 years to get there and they might take like 6 months to get there. Like everyone's going to be a little bit different. But what are you holding out there for them as a goal or aspiration in order to signal to them that you are committed to helping them get there on that journey, despite the fact that it's not linear and it's kind of intangible. Like I just talked to someone who does a type of meditation practice, and at the end of the day, they want some level of like peace and balance in their life, and it is a little bit more like, we haven't gone into the detail of what we're actually going to say, but and what she's doing is helping them in a practice, and she didn't really think of it as a long-term journey. And I really encourage her to say that, because if she's creating a membership, people aren't just there to join one class. They're there to go on a journey of transformation. And we've got to start understanding, like, what is it they really want? And we're going to dive into that. It's going to be really fun. And we're going to come up with something that's really compelling. So like, sometimes I say things like, for it's like a 6-figure membership, because a lot of people would love to earn 6 figures from their one program, right? So, and that's enough income for a lot of people, or a good baseline, right? And it's also challenge. It takes some time to get there. So, or I could say things like, lasting membership, because that's a less tangible indication of like, we want to stop, create a program that's going to sustain. It's not going to be like I'm going to do all this work to set it up and then shut it down, right? And then things like freedom and flexibility, because that is the true benefit of that type of program. So that's kind of how I would say stuff like that. So you've got to kind of understand that as well, because if you're not selling the benefits and the features, you're not like, join the no program so you can do this, and this. Like, nobody needs to know like how many hours of this they get and how many calls they do. They want to know, like, will this program get me to where I want to go in life, or else I'll look at something else. Okay.
Yeah. So it's the classic, not features, benefits, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But even benefits. Yeah. But even outcomes. Like, I like to go further to say that, like you need to start with the outcome. And that's copy. That's not even, that's even before you've introduced the program. It's like the top half of the page, like, what are their problems and what do they really want? It's all about them. When you introduce the program, you can talk about the details. So I would say even more than that, you've got to have an outcome in mind. So I would just curious to know, do you guys all have your outcome? Do you feel confident?
Let's do that, guys. In the chat, pop a yes if you have an outcome kind of clearly articulated. If you do happen to have it on deck because you have it memorized and you've been doing your elevator pitch in the mirror every morning when you brush your teeth, we'd love to hear that too. What those outcomes are. We have Naomi saying yes. We have Dwight working on it. Honesty, man, that's how we do it. We got to figure these things out, because that is ultimately what people buy. So they buy the outcome, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Jones got 100%. You've got that figured out. Love it. Catherine, still figuring it out. Okay. This aligns with kind of that initial number ranking we were looking at early on. We got some people early on in the journey. They know what they're looking to move towards, I think, and they know the community is part of that model. Articulating that outcome is a piece of the thing. Everybody seems to be a mixture of working on, or we have a version of it. We have a V1.
Good. Okay, good. And that can slightly change over time. It's just that, and it doesn't even have to be written out, but you should know, it should be something that you're thinking of when you're writing. So the second rule, so that's how you decide on your deliverables to some extent, that you've got to have that, like, what's that transformation? Like, what's the stuff within that A to B that's going to get you that's going to be the content that you're delivering. And you don't have to deliver it in a linear way, but that's kind of the scope of the content that you're going to create, right? You're going to create things within the A to B. Like don't give them stuff outside of that. That's not within your membership. Your membership is for people who are struggling with this and who want to work towards that. And that's kind of your scope. So the other scope is like to this MVP, like minimum viable product kind of concept, is about finding deliverables that are within your sweet spot or zone of genius, right? And that's what's also going to make it easy for you to show up on a regular basis. So even when my membership isn't growing a lot and it's not really like super busy at times, I will show up I'll do my coaching calls, and I love them because it actually energizes me and it gets me excited about topics that I want to share with my broader audience. So I really appreciate that sort of popcorn coaching conversation we have. So that is something that lights me up, and I know it's different for everyone. Like 100%, I've met so many different people doing this who all have different passions, and what you think is like, oh, isn't it obvious that people would want to deliver this type of way in their membership? It's not, because someone else will not like that, and they'll gravitate towards something else. So this is where you really have to kind of get clear on what that is. And to give you some frameworks for that, here's this sort of, 3 different types is like that you could have as the sort of foundation of your content that you'll always do and that you're committed to doing. And that's going to attract a certain kind of person and also be easy for you. So there's that coaching style, which is providing access to in-time mentorship and guidance to work through the transformation and goals. Education, which is, say, increasing the skills and capabilities through knowledge, or providing valuable time-saving templates and content they can just use or reuse. So that's a different one. And that's great for people who love creating content and love doing trainings. And maybe you're in a topic that does require a lot of teaching. And then there's community also. So it's that space for like-minded people with common goals or interests. And that is like a natural connector, right? So are you like a seasoned coach, and you gravitate towards that? Are you a creator who just wants to create stuff and teach and share your work? Or are you not a natural connector who just wants to help people communicate with each other and get to know other people? It's not to say you can't have all, but you will know which one is your kind of foundational pull, which one feels the most natural to you. And I think that's what you have to base your sort of core content on and your core deliverables. So you might not have a guest speaker one month, but you have your community or you have your coaching calls, right? Like all the other things are extras, and these are the foundations.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because we did have a chat question from Joan who's saying, interesting, what if my membership sweet spot is all of them? How do and the intersectionality of different areas of strength that are part of the membership? Yeah, Misty, well said. Yeah, she did kind of sort of answer that, but just want to rehash that real quick, because Catherine also said she's thinking of doing a bit of all 3 with a monthly Q&A or coaching. So what does the mesh look like, and how do you prioritize? How do you build a foundation and layers? And like, what is your thought process on when people seem to have value props in different categories here?
Okay. I think I've got 2 slides from now. I'm going to do this.
Okay. Awesome. Slides. Guys, answers are imminent. Here we go.
Well, okay. So first of all, start with your zone of genius structure first. I would just put in the thing that you think is and that also gets them to their goal. So for example, if you had a coaching membership, but there was no context without having some kind of baseline training that gets everyone on the same page or teaches them this one thing, then you would be constantly on your coaching calls teaching that same one thing to every new person that came in, right? So you could be someone who likes coaching like me, but then have foundational course content in there so that everyone can prevent from asking like 100 of the same questions over and over again. So it's not to say you can't have it all, but like you'll know what feels like, oh, I hate showing up on my like coaching calls, or I just don't want to do another one after 4 years or 5 years of doing it. Like you'll kind of, so I know you love it all, but at some point you get tired. Something will happen in your life, and it could be in 10 years, that makes you tired, and you're going to not love doing one of those things as much. We all have limits. So sure, you could be keen and love everything and want to show up all the time, but most people will hit a point where at one point they're doubting something or they're going through something personal, and they are like, oh, I just wish I didn't have to show up on these coaching calls, or oh, I don't want to have to create a new training. I said I'd do a new training, or oh, the community is kind of quiet and I have to keep like finding things to say in the community every week. And you might find that one of those feels flat. So that's all I'm saying, is that like, just be really, I just would get to know yourself, because a membership is a journey of getting to know yourself a little bit, because you're going to hit those moments where you're like, what am I doing this for? Or people aren't showing up to the calls or something like that. So I do think that you start with that layering of like, what is it you feel that people need? Now, the reason that I love the coaching calls, say, for example, in mine, is because I love getting to the truth. I'm like a real like truth seeker. Like, what is the actual problem you're having, and what is like the real issue? So I love like analyzing people's businesses and challenges. So people will get on calls like, maybe I should do a da 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 da. I'm like, well, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should just like build your list, because you actually did workshops well in the past. A challenge isn't going to all of a sudden get people, to start buying. Like, you probably need fresh people on your list, so I can save them some work of going off and going down a bright, shiny object path. So that kind of level of connection really does light me up. I think a lot of people would know that. Does that help at all? Because I feel like we do know how we like to deliver, and we also know what our students tend to need. Because sometimes too, like, if we're expecting people to come live to things and they're really, really busy and they don't need a quick, like, emergency thing answered, they won't want to wait through maybe an hour's worth of Q&A just to get to theirs. So that's also a consideration. You might love doing it that way, but other people might not like showing up that way. So you might have to kind of figure out what would be best for yours. So, and I would say if you're planning to do a Q&A once a month, that's like a once a month Q&A with lots of people asking questions, and it's a little less one-on-one. It could be like say on a Facebook Live. That's more of a Q&A than say a coaching membership. So does that make sense?
I think you've added some color here, because I know Joan came back in saying that okay, the base then would be community, but the community is then based around or layered upon with education and coaching. So there is an order of operations then of where combination of passion and strength and what fits, like you said, that your ideal member may be too busy for waiting an hour for their one question spot, and maybe they're time rich and cash poor, and they are going to sit around for that amount of time. There's a variety of different sort of realities you got to mesh with.
And what's the complexity of the problem? Like, can it be answered easily in a community chat? Right. So, and what do you like showing up and doing? Like, you might really want to help people. Well, then how do you go back and forth on a chat conversation and really help someone to get to their answer? So it sort of depends on what you're going to end up doing, because what you're going to end up doing is over delivering on one of these things, probably. Right. Like, we all go too far on one thing. So we want to make sure we've priced it in there. We're accounting for that. And then we're not promising a whole bunch of other things that we said we would do, but we don't have time to do because we're getting busy, because we're trying to, we're working on sales and marketing and stuff. I also want to say that base your foundational content on ideal or average members. So like average or ideal members, or that's a different thing. Okay. So like, what's the average person need, right? Like it's hard to give to too many types of people at different phases. So who is your ideal member and what do they really need? That's the foundational content. And then also think about how many people are in it. So if you're going to get 10 people to sign up for your membership, then and it's not, and you don't need a call every week. If you're going to start small, a lot of people will give a lot right away, and then they get a few people that sign up at first, and it takes them a while to grow, and then they end up almost giving like private coaching. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. But I'll just summarize by saying, like, these 2 rules of success: deliver within that A to B. I talked about that already, and stay within your zone of genius to start. And then you can go outside of that for fun. The number 2, not the A. Okay, quickly I want to go through sales, because I know we're running out of time, and I do have a bunch of stuff in sales, but really this is how are you going to sell your winning transformation? And I want to talk a little bit about at least one thing and 2 things. So your simple sales system is like your clear and compelling offer with great copy, sales assets that convert, and an enrollment system that's always working. And that's three things that you'll want. And then I kind of want to talk a little bit about this irresistibility factor. Like, how are you unique and interesting? Like, what is your unique selling proposition, right? Like, is the transformation you deliver on memorable? Is it captivating? How do you stand out in your approach or perspective that's not what everyone else says or does? And what do clients appreciate or find notable about you or your offer? I think you really got to think about this before you just throw something up, because a lot of people don't put this in their copy, and it just doesn't sound that different, even though you're so excited about what you want to deliver. And it works because you've done it with people, but you haven't necessarily sold it just off of a screen before. And you don't realize that, like, how much you have to say on that page, for example. So I really like to talk about, I cannot tell you how many people, even six-figure membership people, with really not so great messaging on their sales pages. So I'm just like, and they're six figures because they have a giant crowd. They have a huge audience, and that's why they have that
it's
many.
easy
But
to succeed if you have a massive amount awareness footprint, or let's say you've pivoted from being like a 5 times software company founder to a community member, and you've already got 100,000 followers
exactly.
across all your socials. You're like, yeah, it's a different starting point than people who are just like, I'm gonna sign up for LinkedIn today, right? It's a totally different sort of vibe.
Yeah, like I was talking to someone this morning, and she was sharing with me as someone in her field who's really successful. And I said, yeah, her sales copy is not that great because she's sort of famous, and she's also not, like, she's written books and she does all these things, and she's just living, and she's just got stuff up there because people are probably asking for it. So she's a very high level awareness, like, I'm so and so, buy my thing. But if people aren't that raving fans and aren't just like, oh, whatever you have, I'll sign up, you really need to make sure that they're like, why would I buy this? That would be different than all, what else is out there, or different ways to get this help. So just thinking about this. And then, these are the things that need to convert. I'm not going to get too much into this, but I just want to talk about sales pages. So I just see this is the number one problem, is really not great membership sales pages. Like, you need to have great copy. You need to be able to talk to this transformation that they desire. You can't just say, join the membership, here's all these great things. You need to be able to convey how it's going to solve their problems. And lots of great offers are out there that aren't being sold properly because of the values not being communicated. And yes, everyone thinks they just need more traffic to their sales page, but you actually need it to be probably convert better. So I want everyone to spend time on that. Yeah, because this is the problem I see. Like, here's some examples of, it's how you get to many, not just one. Like, one-on-one sales, you just need to get to that point where someone wants to have that conversation with you. This is like people are buying off a page. So, these are a few pages I just put out there. Like, you can see the headline is really transformation based, really getting clear on what it is that they're going to get out of it and how. And I just want to mention that is something that you need to work on. Again, it's not about like, buy my program. Like, no programs are mentioned in these pages, right? It's just talking about like the transformation. And that's not your number one homework. Once you decide your membership and what's in it, this is the main thing to do, is work on the copy and a really easy page. So I was going to talk about ways to sell, but I think there's a lot here. I don't really need to get into membership funnels, but I think I might run through some stats.
Yeah, we got about 15 minutes. So if you got some powerful stats, we can do that. And
Okay, let's look at some stats.
And I've got a few questions saved up for the end, about 4 or 5 so far.
Okay.
So I just want to let you know we have space for that at the end.
Okay. So I want to talk about stats because I think it's important for you to start having these in your back pocket so you can actually know how well things are doing. And of course, how do you know things are working well enough or not? You can observe, but observing also sometimes is a little bit subjective, and you're going to have, oh, no one shows up. It's like, well, how many people are in there? So I'm always asking people about the numbers. I think measurement is where the biggest opportunity is to actually go from like a a self-employed person to a true entrepreneur when you start to look at things objectively and you start to look at numbers. Yes, you can put your heart and soul into your program and heart and soul into your copy, but at the end of the day, to evaluate it, you need to look at it a little more objectively so that you're actually getting the truth of the picture of what's happening. So I'm going to give you some stats that you can start thinking about. Like, we want you to feel good, like observe, like, are they watching the trainings? Are they commenting? All that, right? But don't forget that the quantitative stuff, like, I want to just share this one thing with you. If you have 100, say there's 100 people in your membership, 1% will be super users. So that's one person. 9% will be moderate users and 90% will lurk. So if you have 10 people in your membership, you might not even have a super user, right? Like, you'll have maybe one moderate user, because a lot of people are lurkers. They are engaging. They're just not commenting all the time. They're still observing. I'm a lurker. I don't comment a lot.
That matches up with my community, because I have my own community also. Like, yeah, that matches.
I'd say mine too. Yeah.
Right? So when you look at that, you think like, okay, so people don't hate it. It's just that that's what it takes. And so that's why you have to kind of come up with some more objective. I'm just giving you that as an example of why you have to have that objectivity, or else you start looking at it and going, oh, I don't see anyone talking about anything, or I lost my super user, and then you don't have one anymore. So this is back to sales funnels though. So I want to give you the stat of, like, a general stat of saying, like, you're typically doing pretty well if you have about 1% of your overall list join your membership or your program, or like 1% or more are buyers, because you want to know, like, that's a good, so we're going to talk about this funnel, which I basically just skipped over. This is this funnel, right? Like, membership funnel, or just a marketing funnel. Like, people need to know you exist. They need to kind of be engaged with your content. They need to get an opportunity in front of them, and they need to buy. So at all levels of this funnel, we like to look at, like, how well it's converting along the way. So I would say that if you've got about 1% or more of your list, especially if it's larger, I mean, if it's smaller, you might be much higher than that. If it's quite, an engaged, niched crowd. So this just gives you an idea of, like, wow, I need quite a few people in my audience to get enough buyers in my audience. So that's one measurement. The next is 20%. A lot of you, if you've done ads before, 20% join your list from a landing page. I like to see it much higher than that, especially because if you're not huge, like, I like to see it more like 40%. So that means that your landing page is connecting with them from whatever got them excited, whether they saw a post on socials, whether it's organic or YouTube or whatever, like, whoever's looking, like, made the effort to get off the platform and onto your web, like your landing page for your free offer, that needs to resonate. So I'm going to slash it out and put 40 on it next. 3% of people who land directly on your sales page will buy. So that's usually a good number to say that if you've got a membership page that's always open, you want it to be at 3%. Minimum of 1. If you're under 1, it's not resonating. You've got to go back to the copy. You've got to rethink it. If you can get 3% and you can, and why do I mean, like, if you can afford it? I mean, like, if you're driving traffic, for example, from, say, Facebook ads, and it's costing you not that much to get people to that page, and you can afford to have, say, 2% buy, then that can work for you. But 3% usually means that your offer is resonating well with whatever led them up to that. So see what I mean? These are really low numbers, right? Like, I mean, this is what people don't get, is they're like, oh, wow, I had like no one buy. And I'm like, well, how many people looked at your sales page? And they're like, 8. I'm like, well, if you look at the stats, that's not a big pool of people. So this is why
law of large numbers. Your page could be great. It was just the wrong 8 people. Like,
well, but that is an issue in that what you're leading and how you're hooking them into it. Because if your page is great, you should have 3% or at least 1% of people buy.
There you go.
It's not great if it's not That is just that me or it's an offer misfit, right? Like you brought everyone in through the webinar or a lead magnet, and then the offer is not meeting their needs. So anyways, I'm kind of going back instead of going backwards. I often go backwards because backwards explains a little bit more. 30% who sign up to a sales event like a webinar or workshop show up. That's considered good. So that's interesting because you'll have like, oh, 400 people sign up to my webinar. You might get 100 or over 100 if you've done well, which is, quite a bit, right? It's quite smaller than you think. And then the final one, 5% of people who show up to an event. So let's go back to the webinar. I'll do 100 person. 100 people sign up to a webinar. 30 people sign up for the webinar or show up. And then of the people who showed up to the webinar, you're looking at 5% purchasing from that 30, not from the 100 that signed up, from the people who showed up and watched the webinar. So this is why the numbers are important to recognize, because they are lower than we think. Like we just aren't, so we need to work on building that audience of people who are all like interested in what we're delivering, because you're selling now one to many. And it's not like, 50% of the people who get on a call with me, buy. That's a different kind of thing, right? So that's why we're trying to, and then you can keep reselling to people over and over again. Like I literally do the same webinar all the time. And it's also my free training. And I've just been using it for years. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like you don't have to keep creating new things and new things and new things. You just have to keep selling to people over and over and over again. Because the same person who signed up for your training or your workshop or your webinar in January will have not showed up, and then they'll finally show up in September, and then they'll pay attention and they'll buy. But it's the same one. So
that
that's
journey can be
that's that
long and crooked.
repeatable nature of the frequent selling all the time that you have to get used to. And that's what's going to make a big difference in your business, because these numbers are low, but it doesn't mean that everyone's going to know exactly what you were like. Nobody will even remember the name of your webinar topic. So you could do it 4 times a year and they won't even be, oh yeah, I saw that one already. They won't. So anyone
We've got a
who
lot
hasn't
of love
bought,
for the stats in the chat. Christoph was saying very interesting. Layla was saying, 1% list conversion is good. I got a 2% from my waitlist, and I thought that was horribly low. So it's very interesting, I think, guys, to get some nice benchmarks in these numbers. And
I just want everyone to have expectations so they don't feel like, oh, wow, this is so such a disaster, because it's actually not as much of a disaster. It's just it's a tougher game.
Yeah.
But you're probably playing the game well. It's just tougher than you thought.
I think it's
we got about 5 minutes.
Default to their emotions, nobody showed up for this or nobody signed up. But it's if you actually look at the numbers, you just didn't have enough people land on your sales page, or you just didn't have enough people come to your webinar. You just need to open the floodgates, and get more people, and then you can really analyze your
and
stats.
keep doing the same webinar over and over again, especially if you find that you didn't get 5% of the people who bought from the webinar. Then practice the webinar, then improve the webinar. This helps you know what to focus on, and this is why I was going to say you have to focus on what you where the biggest gaps are and not reinvent, because if you try to do another webinar, then you have to work on improving that one. So this is the consistency factor. So yeah, I can recap. I'm really there. I think get crystal clear in your one big result your members want, and deliver it simply without overbuilding. Keep it light at first, use your strengths and layer in your value, and sell your membership often and repeat what works. And that's how you build steady, predictable income. All right. So yeah, I was going to say I have Membership School, which is my training program on how to build a 6-figure membership, as well as I do private one-on-one work. And the best way to figure out me and go through my training to see what I'm all about besides this is to go to scalingdeep.com/training.
There you go. Well, that's how we get in touch with more Lisa. I do want to go through at least a couple questions, guys. I think we have more than we have time for, given we've got about 4 minutes left, and you guys blossomed so many questions here in the last 5 minutes. So I'm going to pick out as many as we can. The rest, what we'll do, at least if it's okay with you, when the replay posts in the Hearth community, we could tag some of the questions underneath there. Guys, you can go underneath in the comments and get some question Q&A happening there. At least if you're in the Hearth, you can always pop in, and the conversation could continue if we run out of time. Right off the top, wanted to circle back. So Dwight was very patient. He asked this one early on in the call. What do you do if you don't have an existing business, you're starting a community from scratch? So I presume Dwight's also talking about like that scenario, like when you're not the hero persona that already has a giant footprint of awareness.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying I don't know. It's hard to build an audience, but like, I guess you have to find your one platform and try to build your audience there. I mean, or get a website going and get a great lead magnet and start to build your list. So it's either like you're either going to pay for advertising to grow your list or you're going to grow it on a social platform, start a YouTube channel, something like that. You've got to find your audience. Try to get out in front of people and guest audiences. That would be the best way to do it, but you have to have a good website and a good pitch for that. So you have to build up one of those assets, and it depends on your strengths.
Yeah, you got to get attention somehow, and it's either you pay for that attention or you grind through some.
Like
really
I had,
good
I did it back in the Wild West days of like it wasn't as online, so I had to have a local community, right?
Right. You go to show events or whatever, and you
Yeah,
have to like meet
networking.
people, right? Yeah. Let's see. I want to pick out here. Rich had a series of questions that I think all relate to the same top line question here. So Rich asks, "What is on the shortlist for a great sales page? Thoughts about who this is for, who it's not for, or comparing competitor pricing? Any of those things you see as essentials? What are your essentials? That
I don't know about comparing competitor pricing. I'd leave competitors right out of it. But I do think like who it's for, who it's not for at the bottom. But it's about the top half of that page where you're doing that conversion copywriting. I have really good sales tools. If you buy my program, I have a lot of copywriting sales page tools, and it comes with a custom GPT that can help you write it.
Okay.
I just think that the sales page is big.
For sure. And Catherine asks, in line with that, how often do you hold your coaching?
What do you mean? Like how often do I do it in my membership?
Like, do you have sessions that are cohorted? Is your membership just kind of an always open? Like, when can people?
Yeah, mine is through an evergreen funnel. So this also answers like a bit of a question that Rich was asking about webinars. I have a evergreen webinar and then I do it live sometimes. So I have my membership's kind of always open in the back end. So you can join it through a funnel, but it's one by one and it's on a deadline funnel. And then I have a evergreen, and then I do it live once in a while, whenever I feel like it.
Okay. That's a little window into how that works. And last question for now, guys, for the live session, because we do want to wrap up here for everybody. Layla asks, do we have to have time urgency, like only opening the doors for a short period of time?
You need some
I'm
kind
leaning
of
towards, you say, yeah, she's leaning towards leaving it open, but don't know how to create urgency without promising new trainings all the time. So
that's why I have an evergreen backdoor deadline funneled urgency. I think unless your page is converting at 3%, then I would say like if I had people who just signed up for my membership all the time, but because mine's I sell it a little bit differently and a little bit higher ticket, I would say you probably need some kind of urgency with a potential price urgency thing.
Got it. Okay. So guys, I see there were more questions. I want to try to get them all. We're going to save these questions. We'll put them into the hearth. But before we go, I want you guys to all think about, write in the chat, but don't post it yet. We're just going to waterfall everybody's main takeaway. What was the one favorite thing that you guys had? And while you type that in, I am going to share just a thank you note for all of you guys that have attended that maybe you haven't yet thought about doing a community. And if you do, we're biased, but we seem to think that Heartbeat's pretty great. So if you do want to join Heartbeat and use that as the platform to build a community membership offer, we want to give you a special thank you offer. So if you have not yet started a free trial, if you haven't and you're brand new to the space, we want to get you off the sidelines into the game with a low barrier as possible. So what we're doing is we're going to cut the price in half for your first 3 months, and that's good for either starter tier or growth tier. This is a limited offer for now. So between now and midnight Eastern time on Friday, you can go to heartbeat.chat/Lisa, and just signing up for a trial via that link will give you this offer when you choose to sign up. So heartbeat.chat/Lisa, we're going to put that in the chat. It's underneath my name. If you guys have noticed that, underneath my name, underneath Misty's name in the lower third of our labels. And you get all the features, courses, discussions, memberships, everything from free trials, no free trials, freemium, tiered, all of the different structures that you guys can get and the support that we offer for it too. So coming back together now, if you guys could drop in the chat, I would love for you to click send on what is the one takeaway you have. So Lisa knows what she left as an impact with you guys. So 3, 2, 1, if you would click send. in the chat, and I'd love to see what is your main takeaway. That we're selling transformation. Outcomes first. That nifty Venn diagram visual from Terry. Love that. What you measure matters from Rick. Selling the transformation from Nick. Looks like I honestly, same guys. Like that was a solid takeaways. Fix the sales page, says Rich. Yes, fixing the sales page. There's a huge amount of benefit of doing that for sure. So thank you guys all who have stuck around for the extra couple minutes here past the hour. I'm glad that you guys got so much out of this. Lisa, thank you for being here, for presenting. Any parting words before we adjourn?
No, just that you can do it, you can believe in it, but you just have to get like objective and get some support so that you don't really feel like you're doing it wrong all the time. 100% possible.
There you go. 100% possible, guys. That's the way. So thank you again for attending this live tutorial from Heartbeat. Thank you for Lisa Princik from Scaling Deep for being here for this session. The replay will be on YouTube. It will be in the Hearth. Q&A can happen in the Hearth. If you guys have questions, you can reach out to Lisa if you've got more questions. So thank you guys all for attending. Really appreciate you being here. Lisa, Misty, we'll hang out backstage, but we'll turn off the live stream for now. And we'll see everybody in the audience next time. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you later.